This is Phantom Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Lori Brand. You're an author, bodybuilder, and we're going to talk about good intentions, diet culture, and positivity. But
Mhm.
welcome to the Phantom Electric Ghost podcast. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
I want to let people know we are a featured podcast on the Newsly Network. You might see that little icon that says "Listen on Newsly." If you haven't ever checked that out, you can use coupon code GHOST or scrolling below, and we'll be on Newsly as an audio only version of the podcast later tonight. So you can check that out. But we also have your website, www.loribrandwrites.com. That will
Mhm.
be fully clickable. So you don't have to remember that's going to stay up for the length of the podcast. So if you want to go and look at it, but that will be clickable and you won't have to remember because every podcast platform we're on, that's actually like a hyperlink. But again, thank you for being on the show tonight.
Yeah.
So, the good intentions, diet culture, and body positivity is going to be like the subject matter that we talk about. And we're going to talk about telling your story. But
hmm
before we get into that, we always ask every guest, like, what motivates you and why do you do what you do?
So, what really motivated me to write this book? Um, I just have such a strong belief that getting strong is the answer. For so many years, I was really hypercritical of myself on what I looked like, and I was very focused on being a certain size, being a certain weight, and that was just the way it was. And I always strove to fit in this small little culturally accepted definition of beauty, and that because I was always focusing on the scale and on a certain number, it sort of leads to like a shrinking mentality. Like I can't eat this, I have to stay small. And it was only, I'd say, about 10, 15 years ago when something, through a course of life events, changed. And I decided instead I wanted to focus on getting strong. Now, prior to this, I'd been exercising forever. I've exercised like my whole life. I've been athletic. Um, but it was simply the changing of the mindset to focusing on getting strong versus focusing on shrinking that I realized it made such an enormous difference. It's a game changer, right? And I'm still about the same size right now. I have considerably more strength though, but it was that growth mentality. Instead of focusing on getting small, I was focusing on getting strong. Instead of focusing on what I couldn't eat so that I fit somebody else's ideal, I was focused on the food I needed to like nourish my body to achieve these goals of getting strong. And it was this growth mindset, and it was just like it was so like mind boggling the difference that it made in my life that I just like almost became like evangelical with it. I started writing for fitness magazines. Before I wrote for fitness magazines, I just couldn't shut up. Like I exhausted all my friends and my family and everybody. I just told everybody about this. So I started writing for fitness magazines sort of as an outlet, right? And then at some point we'll get into the actual impetus for this book. But at some point, if you're writing to fitness magazines, you're essentially preaching to the choir. These are people who already, who already believe in getting strong and things, or want to be healthy. But I thought if I could like slip this message into like the masses, right? If I could get other people to pick up a book and read it. For my book is a thriller, right? It's not a self-help book at all. It's a thriller. People die. It's a ride.
Well, it's like a
But
fiction book
yeah,
that
it's
integrates.
fiction, right? It's
Yeah,
fiction, right?
yeah,
But the theme of Bodies to Die For, the theme here is the war on women's bodies, the wars that we
mhm.
wage on each other and the wars that we wage on ourselves. And I really wanted to address a lot of this in my book. And I've kind of slipped this message into my book that getting strong is the answer, and that we as women need to quit tearing each other down and ripping each other apart. We need to work together to make for a better tomorrow. So I slipped that into a thriller. It took me about 82,000 words, but I got there. Yeah.
Well, that's cool. Well, I
Yeah.
think what's really important sometimes is like you said, people look at there may be like other people to compare
hmm
themselves, the
hmm
comparison trap. So you
Yeah.
look at somebody's body, well, that's not actually your body, that's
hmm
their
hmm
body. And your
Yeah.
body type might not even match their
Yeah.
body type. So like for your health, trying
Mhm.
to look like that person is
Mhm.
actually not the best goal in your life because it may make you unhealthy, right? Because it's
Mhm.
not. Because we have so many like archetypes in social
Mhm.
media and all these like influencers, and a lot of
Yeah.
young kids, they
Mhm.
might see a body type, and it's actually not good for them to try to strive for that body type. It might,
Yeah.
it seems like it would be more important to actually, build up your strength for your own body, your spirit, your soul, to do the
Yeah.
things you want to do rather than what it looks like superficially.
And so like I follow like a lot of like Olympic weightlifters and things, and I follow a lot of bodybuilders still, but I I'm looking to them through a lens of like, wow, I wish I could do that. Like, I want to do that, right? Like, I'm gonna right now the most pull-ups I've ever done is 10. But I like to watch people who can do more because I find it inspirational, right? I
Mhm.
find it motivational. But if there are certain accounts that like you are following that make you feel bad about yourself, I would suggest not following those accounts. And again, it's not so much looking at others as like with envy. I still think it's great to look at other people for motivation, but
Mhm.
the thing is that you can't look at trying to please somebody else. And that's really the important thing is if you're trying to chase elusive beauty standards, and I'm 54, so I've been through a lot, and beauty standards are always changing. They change like every 10-15 years, right? Maybe every 5-10 years. And and not only that, but you'll never make everybody happy. There'll be some people who prefer you this way, some people who prefer you a different way, but it's really how you perceive yourself. And also, in putting your agency and your power in somebody else's hands or in something external, I think it just makes you feel very vulnerable. And instead, if you can set your goal and say like, I want to do a pull up, or I want to walk a mile. I want to do a push up. I want to swim 100 yards or whatever it is, right? Whatever strong is for you. These are there's nothing arbitrary about it, right? Like squatting 100 pounds is squatting 100 pounds. And when you start to tick these things off your list, when you set yourself like a certain goal, like something that's attainable, but it's a reach and it's attainable. Once that you do that, then you start to feel kind of good about yourself. You're like, you know what, I can do hard things. And you set another goal, and you just really start to become like mentally unstoppable. And I mean, man, I could just die on this hill. So anyway, yeah,
No, I think
huge
it's real
fan of
important.
it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's the same thing happens with like creative people. Like
yeah,
if you're like you're an author,
yep,
you're a writer, painter.
mhm,
If you spend all your time trying to, you might be inspired by Picasso, but you
mhm.
never be Picasso, right? So if
Right,
you're
right,
trying to
right,
be Picasso, you're trying to be, Jimi Hendrix, like maybe you're not gonna get there, right? But if you
right.
decide like, why can't I have my own voice? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what's wrong with having my original, you know, ideas being presented? Well,
Yeah,
what's wrong is it represents like you as an
yeah,
individual, and you're probably not like anybody else. So first time
yep,
somebody hears it, they might be like, well, I don't know if that's good, right? But the
yeah,
idea is like eventually there's a law of attraction. And if you have
yep,
start to put yourself out there and it's your
yep,
voice, it
yep,
might be
yep, yep,
inspired by other people, actually your voice. And there's
yep.
nothing wrong about being inspired, but when you actually use your own voice to
Yes,
actually say it or do it or
yes,
be it,
yeah,
then you
yeah,
get
yeah,
a lot of power because then
yep.
they become more immune to the haters, more immune
Mhm.
to the feedback,
Yeah.
and you start to say, "Hey, there's nothing wrong with making like what I call a happy accident." Right?
Yeah.
Instead of
Yeah.
calling it a mistake,
Mhm.
it's like, "Oh, we hit a bad note as a musician." It's like, well,
Yeah.
that's an opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? You could look at it as like you made a mistake, or you could look at it as I could evolve the song in a different direction. So there's
Yeah.
nothing if you start to look at it like glass half full or glass half empty, you start it's mindset
Yeah.
is like every
And to your point regarding art, right? All forms of art. If you try to please everybody, you're gonna end up with something that's very vanilla, right? It's something that may not end up that's gonna like really move anybody. So there might be like you said, you have to find maybe your audience, right? There's going to be, if you write what you are moved to write, the thing that stirs you, that motivates you, the thing that you have to scream on from a mountaintop, that's going to make it to the ears of your audience. There might be other people that turns off, but you know what? Then so be it, right? Because
Yeah.
you're reaching the people, you're reaching your audience, right?
You
Yeah.
find your tribe, you end up
Yeah.
finding, and they could be all over the world. There's a
Yep.
lot of people
Yep.
who have the same
Yeah.
mindset. If
Yeah.
you're a musician, like you can find, I got an audience in Norway and I live
Yeah.
in New Hampshire, right?
Oh,
I got an
wow.
audience
Okay.
in like New Zealand or Argentina. Like they're
I
people that
love
like you
that.
can expect that
Yeah.
they found something, right? They
Yeah.
might be a totally different language, but they heard something, right?
Yeah.
So it's like there's like these universal keys, like there's these frequencies you can hit,
Yeah.
and whether you're writing a story or
Mhm.
presenting like a program as a fitness
Yeah.
program or anything, like you
Mhm.
strike a chord with people, you hit that
Sure.
note, and not everybody's going to be in your studio, not
Yeah.
everybody's going to subscribe to your brand, but
Uh-huh.
the ones that do, they
Yeah.
get you, and there's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with it. It's like okay, everybody's got their own flavor they like.
Mhm. Mhm.
Multiple flavors, you never know. You say if you put it out there, but if you're scared to
Yeah.
present,
Yeah.
then you never get it out, right? So if you're scared to try, you don't
Yeah.
know what you do or you can't do. Sometimes
Yeah.
you have to tread a little water
Yeah.
to learn how to swim, you know? He's like,
Absolutely.
David Bowie said he didn't feel good as an artist unless he was treading water. Sometimes he had to
Okay.
go and reinvent himself, right?
Okay.
And actually go into something that he wasn't comfortable with, but
Yeah.
he would try it
Yeah.
because he felt like if he stayed in the same place, well, it's boring.
Yep.
So he would go and shift into different, like, theatrical characters that would
Sure.
stretch himself. And so
Yeah.
sometimes, like, if you think about, like, you're doing fitness, right?
Yeah.
You have a goal. Well, you
Mhm.
hit that goal, you're probably gonna look for another one, right? You're not
Yeah.
just gonna stick with that one.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So your journey to write Bodies to Die For, what was that like? I
Yeah.
mean, when did you decide to write it, and when did you actually commit to writing it?
Okay, so this is a great story. So I was actually writing a different book at the time. So this is my first book that's traditionally published. About 10, 15 years ago, I had written a whole other book. I had queried it. I was not able to get an agent for that, and I just kind of shelved that book. I had gotten some feedback from different agents who had requested materials that led me to realize I was going to have to do a significant rewrite. And I, I just, I just sort of like didn't feel like it. Like if, and I look back now and I know why. That was a book I had to write for myself. I just had to write it to get it out of my system. Once I wrote it, I was sort of good, right? If I couldn't have sold it the way it was, or for the most part, I wasn't interested in reworking it. This
Mhm.
book, Bodies to Die For, I wrote this book for the world. Okay. Like I wrote this, it's dedicated to all women everywhere. And like I said, I was writing another book at the time, and I was about 20 or 30,000 words into the other book. And then this situation happened. And I'm going to tell you what it is in a second, but this thing came in the news, and I just couldn't let go of it. I just kept coming back to it and coming back to it and coming back to it. And finally one day I set that other book aside and I decided I'm just going to write a little bit of this other thing that I just can't let go of. And I wrote about 5,000 words. And then I was like, you know what? I'm in, right? The other book is like off to the side. I'm going to stick with this. I'm going to run with this. And so I'll tell you what the incident was. In January of 2020, Jillian Michaels was interviewed on BuzzFeed News. And when she was asked what she thought about Lizzo as a body positivity role model or body acceptance role model, Jillian said, why are we celebrating her body? Why aren't we celebrating her music? Because it's not going to be awesome if she gets diabetes. And I don't know if you remember, but social media completely blew up. I was
Blew up.
all over. It was just complete. It was all over social media. People were calling for Jillian's head, right? People were saying that she was body shaming Lizzo, and then other people were saying, but she's right, right? And we have to quit glorifying obesity. And there were these two warring, clashing sides. I mean, this went on for like a few days. It was just crazy. I think Jillian Michaels got some death threats. And then
Oh,
not much later, a few months later, Adele posted a picture of herself on her birthday to Instagram. That was all it was. It was just a picture of herself, and it was her birthday. And all these people came out of the woodwork because it was clear in the picture that she had lost a lot of weight. And a lot of people were saying that they were disappointed in her, and they felt that she had let them down because they looked up to her as a body positivity role model. And then other people said, no, it's really great what she's doing, right? She's getting healthy. And it was all these people, and all she did was post a birthday picture. That was it, right? And I couldn't even tell you how many thousands and thousands and thousands of people. It was just crazy. And it was so much so that a while later, Adele actually came up with a statement about it because it was so much controversy. And she said, she had been going through a dark phase at that point in her life, and she had turned to exercise to help her deal with it. And and that's a good thing. But here's the thing. Adele shouldn't have to come out with a statement, right? A woman ought to be able to
explain
a woman ought to be able to post a picture of herself to Instagram without the entire world critiquing what her body looked like. And I was so flabbergasted by the amount of vitriol hurled from both sides. It was almost all women too that were doing the hurling. That like, I was thinking, and my book, when I originally wrote my book, was called Body Wars. It was renamed by the publisher to Bodies to Die For. But I was thinking to myself, like, what if these two warring sides, right, like moved offline, right? Like what might happen, right? And it, but also really got me, because I've got a background in dance and in fitness and everything like that, in bodybuilding. So I'm a huge fan of exercise, but there's so much good about fitness and about the wellness and everything. But I'm very much aware of it because of bodybuilding, especially about the dark underbelly, right, of what we consider to be fitness, right? There's certainly a dark underbelly to that whole wellness culture. But at the same time, what we were seeing also is there's so much good about the healthy every size movement, right? There's a lot of good about that, about not body shaming other people, and about not feeling like you have to be a certain size to wear a swimsuit and go to the beach. There's just so much that's so good about it. But we were starting to see an ugly side of it where you were starting to see the healthy at any size movement all of a sudden expecting people who were a certain size not to want to like lose weight or to get to and the fact that like anybody would consider that somebody owed them their body. And it was these two warring sides, man. I couldn't let it go. And I kept thinking to myself, everybody's focused on the wrong thing, right? Everybody's focused on the wrong thing. Why are we focused on each other's bodies? Why aren't we focused on like getting strong for ourselves and like uniting and making the world better? I think both sides want to see the world be better. Why aren't we coming together and making the world better so that we quit judging each other? And it drove me to write my book. And to this day, it launched June 11th. And it's years after I started, but I believe in this so strongly that here I am on your podcast. Yeah.
I think it's really interesting because a lot of times people don't actually respect individuals.
Yeah.
Like this is an example of music, right?
Okay.
If you're a musician, you could have like your biggest hit when you're like 22 years old.
Yeah.
Right. And
Absolutely.
then suddenly you're like 35.
Yeah.
Well, the 35 you is not like the 22-year-old you.
Yeah.
But everybody's looking at you like they want you to be that 22-year-old.
Yeah.
Well, you're not there, but they
Yeah.
expect you to be there.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. There's a lot of audience, and now because of all the internet, you have the same level of expectation on anybody that posts.
Yeah.
So if your favorite post is that they got 1 million views, that's what they want you to do. If you decide to do something else, they're like, "What are you doing?" It's like, "Well, I'm not going to do the same thing every day."
Yeah.
And so everybody wants you to be like in this kind of box.
Yep.
The box they feel comfortable about, right? You can have friends that knew you when you were 17.
Yeah.
Right? And now by the time you're 35, you're not that 17-year-old anymore.
Yeah.
And if they only wanted to be with you the way you were then, that might be a problem because you're probably not there.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So that's like, I guess maybe I'm trying to make it a comparison, like to the same kind of things that can happen in life is people. I think people like to be comfortable. They
Yeah.
like to have their vision of their interactions with you, like are on
Yeah.
a continuum. And if you go
Yeah.
outside that continuum, they're like, "Oh, I don't know who you are anymore."
Yeah. But for us to grow and continually evolve, we may not yeah, there are wonderful people who will be in your life at different points, and there might be points where like the people who were wonderful for you to hang around with in your 20s may no longer, and nothing against them, right? But you guys just might genuinely just sort of drift in different directions, just from life circumstances or from interests or for whatever. But I think that we have to respect our ability to evolve as people, right? And to follow our own interests. And we may come back to some friends, and we may not, but we may wish them well, along that journey. Yeah.
And the body shaming go depending on whatever like
Mhm.
body type you are. Like you could be a very thin person,
Yeah.
like you like the
Yeah.
David Bowie. He
Yeah.
had a all he had a character called the Thin White Duke.
Uh-huh.
Really super kind of like maybe seemed rather unhealthy, right?
Uh-huh.
Compared to some of his other personas that weren't as like anorexic like, and that was kind
Yeah.
of pushed up there, and then you can kind of wonder like, what does that cause problems when
Mhm.
you pitch that type of image, right? You pitch that image, and then if you change it,
Yeah.
well, some people might say, well, this is what you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be that thin white Duke character, right? You're supposed to be.
Yeah.
That's where you're supposed to stay. And that it seems like Adele. She was had the kind of, oh, you can be any body type you want. And then she decided for herself she wanted to get into exercise. Suddenly
Uh-huh.
her body type is not that.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, is that what you're like? Now they feel like, oh, you're letting us down.
Yeah. And regarding also about what somebody looks like on the outside, so my book has two protagonists, right? Two main characters. We're both women. And yeah, because the book was originally called Body Wars, I wanted to show all sides of the body war, of women fighting with each other, but also of women fighting with themselves, and how you present yourself to the world. Even if you look really healthy, you may not be really healthy. And so one of those two main characters, her name is Gemma, and she's a bikini bodybuilder. She's somebody who lost 100 pounds online, and she gathered this huge following of people when as she lost this 100 pounds. And she's now a fitness influencer. She makes her livelihood off of that. She's become a personal trainer also, and she's a bikini bodybuilder, and she looks phenomenal. Like, anybody who would look at her would think like, wow, she's so healthy, she's so great. But what you don't see, but if you read the book, you see, because you're in her mind, is that she's haunted by what she considers to be this voice that she calls Fat Gemma. So Fat Gemma lurks in her mind, and she's terrified that Fat Gemma one day will come roaring back and destroy her life.
Back,
Yeah, and offline, so she presents a really great, picture of herself. She's married, she's got a handsome husband, the whole thing. Her husband and she are having all these marital problems. Like, her life offline is like not so great, but online it looks really wonderful. And then
Mhm.
and then the other main character is Ashley, who is an overweight software engineer. And it shows how the world treats her simply because she's overweight. Like, there's a point in the book where she almost gets run over by an SUV, and she has to jump out of the way, and she just barely gets out of the way in time. And she cuts her knee, and she has to go to the urgent care center. And the doctor actually kind of body shames her. He says, well, it would have been easier. You might not have gotten hurt if you weren't so overweight. And she's like, well, how would that have helped, right? And he's like, well, you would have been more agile, right? You could have moved out of the way
Oh,
faster. But so
you don't need to
it's
say
just,
that.
yeah, right. But so
Like,
it just really looks at how it's very hard to judge somebody by just what they look like. Or like, on the weekends, I volunteer as a yoga teacher at a homeless shelter for women and children. And it's a transitional housing, so a lot of the women will stay there for, like, say, 4 to 6 months. And what we will sometimes see is a woman who will come in, and she'll gain some weight. And, and she'll be kind of disappointed because she gained weight over the last few months. But like, she's just like, say, quit doing meth, or she got out of like a really abusive, scary relationship. And like, for her, gaining a little weight, it might be for her a good sign, or there's a way of maybe say protecting herself right then, or whatever it
Mhm.
is. But like,
Yeah,
it's very we
situational.
just
It's
yeah, but
yeah,
we just can't judge each other's bodies, or what we just don't know what other people are going through. And so my book is really about like giving that grace to each other and giving that grace to ourselves.
yeah, because you don't know people's, like,
No.
what's going on behind the veil, because, like,
Yeah.
you're on social media, like, I talked to a guy that was a bodybuilder,
Uh-huh.
and he had six-pack abs, and he looked fantastic, right?
Yeah.
But he had some issues going on in his, like, in his head, in
Psyche,
his,
sure. Yeah.
he because what what people saw,
Yeah.
they would see the six-pack abs, they see this really physically
Mhm.
well-built guy. But
Yeah.
inside,
Yeah.
he didn't see that. Like, when he looked
Yeah.
in the looking glass, he
Yeah.
didn't think he looked good. So
Yep.
so sometimes, like, this if you go for that, you say, "Well, he must be
Yeah.
happy." But guess
Yeah.
what? He wasn't happy.
Oh, I
So
know.
the idea that's gonna not everything that you see outwardly is gonna make you happy.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
sometimes it's, like, it's very situational, it's very personal, there's a
Mhm.
lot of things going on. People are not what the mask they portray doesn't really
Yeah.
show who they really are,
Yeah. Yeah.
and there's
Yeah.
always a little more depth, and people sometimes are very superficial, they don't wanna get into the depth because
Yeah.
they go, "Oh, well, I don't wanna hear that because that's a bummer." It's like, "Well, that's life."
Yeah. 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 Yeah, absolutely. And that was actually something that I was really struck by back when I was bodybuilding, is that you know, I was hanging around some women with just phenomenal bodies, right? Just absolutely phenomenal, right? And sometimes I'd be like next to somebody, we'd be looking in a mirror, and like we've got a show coming in, like, like 2-3 hours or something. And you'd hear occasionally somebody say like, "Oh my god, I just I'm just so fat right now." Right? And like you're looking at them, and like
You're like,
they've
"Don't
got
see it."
like veins on their lower abs, and but it's interesting how sometimes it's and
Perception is
yeah, yeah.
reality.
Mhm. Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it depends on, like, the lens that you see
Yep,
yourself in
yep,
is very
absolutely.
important because, like, you could have, like, that perfect body, but if you have imposter syndrome,
Yep,
when you look in the looking glass, you don't see what other people see. You
yeah,
see somebody else, and
right.
that other person is not who you want, is, like, lacking in
Yep,
your
yep,
mind, and
yep,
so then you're like
yep.
so everybody else doesn't see that. They see something, they
Mhm.
say they don't understand what you see. Um,
And yes,
and that's, like, the kind of work that people have to do that they don't
yes.
do.
But
You know?
that's why I'm such a big proponent of getting strong, because you can trick yourself looking in the mirror. You can trick yourself all day long looking in the mirror. But if you say, you know what, my goal is that I want to be able to squat 100 pounds. All right, you either squat 100 pounds or you don't. Right?
Yeah.
There's no
I mean,
mistake
yeah,
in that,
it's
right?
clear.
These are things that you can hang your hat on, that you can look at this, and it's concrete stuff. And that's I think really empowering, right? You put in the time, you can achieve these goals. And I
Yeah,
just
'cause I
think it's
mean,
so much
I'm a
better.
mountain, but yeah,
Yeah,
put the time in.
yeah,
If
yeah.
you think about it, like, I had a I'm a mountain biker, and I had
Okay.
when I was in my 20s, I had cancer,
Oh, I
and,
didn't know
I
that.
couldn't
Okay.
bike, and I
Uh-huh.
had to come back. So I gave myself
Yeah.
the goal of
Yeah.
coming back. So like, while I was, in my treatment, I got a frame, and I was building it.
Uh-huh.
So, like, I
Yes.
got back, I said, "You know what? I'm gonna do my first 5-mile cross country
Yes.
then I'm gonna do a 10 mile, and I'm gonna do so I had the
Yes.
goal to bring myself back because, like,
Yes.
I was like, I wasn't able to do anything, but then
Mhm.
I gave myself, "I'm gonna have this brand new bike. I'm gonna
Uh-huh.
start from 0 again, but I'm
Uh-huh.
gonna give myself, like, little goals, and
Yes.
I'm gonna be able to do 5 miles, 15 miles, 20 miles 30-mile route, be able to go back and do the downhill. So once you like, and it was all about like just getting myself strong enough to do it, not to
Yes.
actually be competing with my buddies I used to ride with
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
try
Yeah.
to beat
Yeah.
them. It was more
Yeah.
like I gotta beat this goal for myself.
Yes.
And then
And
later I could like challenge
yes.
those guys. But I didn't want to go and fail right
Yes.
off that by saying, "Oh, I'm going to try to beat John." It's like, well, I'm probably not going to beat John right now.
But let me ask you this. But after you went and you did that, right? After you had those goals and you hit that, how did that make you feel?
Well, it was like part of my comeback therapy.
Right. Right. So how did that make you feel when you hit all those goals? How did that make you feel?
I felt like I was back. Like after
Yeah.
something like
It,
cancer, like you don't know if you can even do that, right?
yes, but
You
you
don't even know.
proved to yourself that you could, right?
Yeah.
So how about just I mean just like the self-esteem that generates and your self-belief and your self-confidence and you go, the next time that life throws you some kind of nasty curveball, you're like, huh, well, I came back from cancer in my 20s, so look out, right? I mean, like it's just that set of confidence, right?
Was having a different point of view because I was with some
Yeah.
people in the cancer ward, and
Yeah.
they were like, "Oh, it's over,"
Uh
and they weren't giving themselves the next
yeah.
thing. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a really a lot of it's mindset because
Yeah.
if you're in that ward and you're with the people and they're like and they're saying it's over, right?
Yeah.
You could go and say, "Well, I guess it's over," right? So
Yeah.
you cannot give yourself a goal and
Yeah.
say that you want to do this, right? So if you
Mhm.
could just say, "Well, like now I'm in my 20s and it's such a downer," right? Well, I
Mhm.
tried to find like what is it I could do to get out of it?
Mhm.
What could
Mhm.
I do that's gonna make me like eat healthy, which I'm supposed to, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Exercise, get
Mhm.
outdoors, be
Mhm.
able to get myself into something that it's fun. Mountain
Yep.
biking. I'm in the Northeast. It's really cool to be in the woods. It's really cool
Sure.
to. It's not just. I mean, being in a gym is cool, but like
Yeah.
mountain biking to me was I
Yeah.
liked that I'm out there in
Yes.
nature, going up the creek
Yes.
bed, going down the creek bed.
Yes.
That in itself to be able to have the dexterity to be able to come down the creek bed. That
Yeah.
in itself is the goal. It's like I can go
Yeah.
down this creek bed without crashing. I can
Yeah.
go up without
That's
crashing.
wonderful. That I
So you
think
give
it's
yourself those
wonderful.
things, and it's not something like you just build that up
Yep.
for yourself.
Absolutely. Yep. 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 You get. It's not just getting physically strong, right? You get mentally strong. You like emotionally strong, and you just have like all that self belief. Then, yeah.
But what do you think about how diet culture kind of detracts from that type of effort? Like if you're in diet culture,
Yeah.
is that really going to build you up, or is it kind of
So
take
I think.
away? Does it take
Yeah.
away more than building up?
I think it is right when we and when I say diet culture, I mean like when you're just so focused on trying to hit that beauty standard, right? There's a certain standard that's been set and whatever it is today, right? It's that trying to hit it. It's again, it's that putting your agency, your self-worth in somebody else's hands.
Mm,
Trying to hit that societal ideal rather than what rather than that getting strong and what that puts it in your hands. And I think that the diet culture can just be so pervasive, and we're not even aware of how many ways it touches us. Like like just even like being in line at the grocery store and you've got magazine articles with like headlines popping out at you, like lose 5 pounds in a week or drop 2 dress sizes in a month or whatever. Like it's just constant. Or like like even wanting to walking down the aisles at the grocery stores, they've got light this and light that. And
oh, yeah.
and you get any group of women together, and very frequently it will turn to, oh my god, I've gotten so fat, and it's
Uh,
it really is. Or if or like even like I can't tell you how many times I've like eaten lunch with somebody or eaten a snack with somebody, and and I'm not throwing shade at anybody for saying this, but we're like a woman will say something like, oh, I shouldn't be eating this, or I'm so bad for eating this.
mm,
And it's that internal. I know that she's thinking it to herself, but it's that I mean, I'm sure plenty of people actually think that and don't even say it out loud, but it's that internal self-talk, right? That
yeah,
you're not
bad self talk.
bad, right?
Yeah,
You're
you
not
don't want to do
bad
all
for
that bad.
eating that, right? And
Yeah,
and 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 also it it influences those around you. I don't have any daughters, I have sons, but you know, we have to be very careful, even as parents, the type of way that we project ourselves. I'm extremely fortunate. I grew up with parents who weren't they just didn't care about like what my body looked like at all. They just wanted me to be a kind, good person. But I can remember being over at one of my friends' houses. I remember this like the summer. I might have been to like maybe when I was about 14 or 15. And I can remember being over. I used to go over to this girl's house a lot. And I still remember I used to go over to her place and we used to suntan. And I still remember what my bikini looked like. I had a white bikini. And occasionally we'd go inside, and it was a hot summer, to get like a glass of Crystal Light out of the fridge. And her mom had this picture of herself taped to the fridge, a picture of herself when she was heavier, and she was sitting on a horse. I remember this whole thing, and she had written the word "fat," with a question mark, and it was a picture of herself like before she lost some weight. But every time we would walk in that house, and I'd have to open up that refrigerator door, I had to read that "fat, fat, fat, and I was in this white bikini most of that summer, and I remember, and I can tell you, I never let anything cross my lips in that household other than Crystal Light. I was always very she had an older brother too, who was like maybe a year or two older, and I was always just extremely self-conscious. And I was self-conscious if the mom came down, if the mom was around, because I was like in this swimsuit, and I was like 15 years old. It was such a self-conscious age, and so just that was just me hanging out at that house that summer, right? But imagine how that affected that girl who lived there all the time, right? I mean, it impacted me. Actually, I've got a great. Oh my God, I've got a great story. Okay, so diet culture first actually popped on my radar when I was 10 years old. So I've been in dance lessons like as long as I can remember. I don't even remember starting them. Probably when I was 3 or something. But when I was 10, my dance teacher, in an effort to lose weight, had her jaw wired shut. Okay. I will never get over this. My mom, I still remember this. My mom was driving me to dance one day on like probably like a Thursday or something. And she says to me in the car, oh, just so you know, Barbara's not going to be teaching for the next few months. She'll still be there. She'll be off to the side. She'll have a notebook. She'll be taking notes, but Jill's her assistant, Jill's going to be teaching. I'm like, oh, okay, why? And my mom says, because Barb had her jaw wired shut. And I was just like, what? Why? And my mom said, well, Barb wanted to lose some weight. And I was like, so she had her jaw wired shut? And anyway, and
that was
I'm
approved.
yeah, and I'm asking all these questions, right? And but we don't live that far away. And so my mom's now pulling up to the curb, and she's like, look, don't go in there asking all these questions because you're gonna make her uncomfortable, right? Just go in there, go to class, and like behave, right? So I get dumped off at the curb, and I go in, and all these other little girls are going in, and there's some of the moms are walking the daughters in, but it's just another day. And sure enough, Jill's teaching, but nobody is freaking out. I'm talking about diet culture. My dance teacher's got her jaw wired shut and nobody's freaking out. And so I watched this over the next several weeks, months. I watched Barb shrink. She starts to get smaller and smaller and smaller. She's off in a corner. Occasionally she sucks a protein shake through a straw and her cheekbones pop. And anyway, at some point I do something. I don't know what I did, but I was probably misbehaving. But she pointed at me and she curled her finger, like, come here. So I go over to her, tap, tap, tap in my tap shoes. And I don't remember what she said, but she's got it. She points her finger. She has to curl her finger, so I have to come in close because she's talking with her jaw wired shut. So I got to listen really close. And I don't remember what she said, but when she's done, I realized that like the two of us were alone. There's no other moms around to rat me out. There's no other kids around to rat me out. So I said, did you really have your jaw wired shut? And she shook her head, yeah. And I said, can you see the wires? And she shook her head, yeah. And I said, can you show me? And she hooked her finger in the side of her lip and she pulled her lips back. And you could see the wires zigzagging up and down between her upper and lower teeth. It looked like jagged fangs. So that was, I almost passed out. So that was my first encounter with diet. And think about that. I'm 54 years old. I remember that. And there was probably, yep. And I was a thin kid. I was like 10 years old. I was a whip of a kid, But I mean, that had an impact on me. How important was it to be thin?
That's
It was
super important. Yeah,
that important enough that a grown woman
he's
would
got to
wire
do it.
her jaws shut, and that the whole world they shrugged. The world was like, "Okay, sure, it makes sense, like, no problem."
Because
I
it's like so important
Yep,
to
that's a
be
huge.
yeah, it's so
Yeah,
important. And it's like you said, you go to the grocery store and it's every
yeah,
bad diet's on top of all the
yeah. So
papers are out
it's
there.
just all around us. So so I really think it's especially important that we as parents, um, we set a good example, that we don't perpetuate that diet culture where we attribute somebody's self-worth to the size that they are. I think that's just I'd really like to see people quit doing that.
Yeah, also it's so extreme because a lot of
Mhm.
times it's like,
Oh,
I'm a Buddhist, but I try to live in balance, like a kind of a
yeah,
mantra.
yeah,
So if you see things in life that are out of balance, like if you're going,
yeah,
diets tend to be very extreme. You go like, oh, I'm only going to eat this, I'm only going to drink
yeah,
that,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's not. The problem with them is they're not sustainable for the next
Mhm.
like 20, 30 years of your life, right?
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
not. You're going to end up failing, and then you're going to feel guilty. You're going to feel shame, and then you're going to be
yeah.
on the next thing. So it's not really a good plan
Mhm.
because the plan, like you said, if you do something that is more balanced, that like it's actually more attuned to you. Like if you do
Yeah,
something that's nutritionally good that you can stay right, you do exercise, it's gonna make all your numbers better. It's gonna
yeah,
make your physical better, make
yep,
you feel better. And then
yep,
if you feel better, then your mental outlook will be better. So if you do
yep,
things that you can kind of build up from yourself
yeah,
without external things,
right,
like
right,
those are probably gonna last versus the kind of quick fix, you
yeah,
know, pill culture, fad culture, those things
yeah,
aren't sustainable because then they
yeah.
cause side effects or they cause other effects. And so if you can do something that's more aligned to like,
Or
oh, who you are and what
yeah,
you really want to do, like so you have to ask yourself, the characters, like, do they ask themselves like how they want to be happy or what
mhm,
makes them happy?
yeah. So by the end of my book, right? So if you read the whole book and you come to the end, you'll find that both characters discover that getting strong is the answer, right? Rather than trying to chase elusive beauty standards, and that and again that we have to be kind to each other, we have to quit judging each other. So often we say, well, society this and society that, but we really need to ask ourselves, who is society, right? It's us.
Mm,
All right. If
yeah.
we wanted to change, we need to change it, right? Start in your immediate circle. Like I will not, I haven't in probably over a decade, I will not buy a magazine if it's got like somebody on the cover where it says like so and so got fat or whatever. You know how they have those awful headlines, you know what I mean? Or like those
Mean
magazines that have like
spirited,
black
mean
black
spirited.
rectangles over a woman's like eyes, where like they show her as like a fashion no because she's like bubbling out of her clothes or something, or like so and so got fat. I don't buy things like that, right? Do just refuse to. And if you hear people speaking unkindly about somebody, you speak up and say, that's not nice, right? I mean, like,
Well, having
really
empathy.
speak
Yeah, you
up.
gotta have empathy for your
Yeah.
fellow person. It's like, do
Yes.
some people look at, "Oh, that's funny," or they think that's like,
Yes.
"Oh, you can look." Some people wanna feel better by putting
Uh-huh.
somebody else down,
Yeah. And,
and
and,
if
and
you
so,
really gotta look at yourself as
yeah.
like, why do you feel better when you put
Yeah.
somebody else down?
It's so awful. Yep.
It's not
And
about
I
you.
think, yep. And I also think we have to, and not just when we see it amongst other people. I think we also have to take a moment sometimes, because we sometimes do it to ourselves, right?
Mhm.
So sometimes something you would never say about somebody else, sometimes you might say it about yourself, and to stop that negative self-sabotaging talk, right? Words matter, including the words that you say to yourself, to just come lead with a spirit of kindness. Yeah.
Everything kinda starts like, in sociology, there's the idea of the microcosm, which is like individual, and then
Uh-huh.
there's a macrocosm, which is general
Yeah.
society. It's like everything starts with that self-love.
Yeah.
Like, it's like you can't actually give love or be
Mhm.
positive or have like a very have like a growth mindset if you're
Uh-huh.
down on yourself. If you're down
Okay.
on yourself, you're never going to get to the growth mindset. You're never going to get around all these people that give you that entrepreneurial
Mhm.
passion, and people will feel it around you, like the law of attraction. Like if you
Okay.
don't feel good about yourself, you're not going to attract people that put you on that road to
Yeah.
positivity. You're going to have Holly be around people that keep you in a situation of codependence or being self-doubting and not moving forward, because that actually makes you feel comfortable, but it's a trap,
Mhm.
to be in that
Mhm.
place. You got to, sometimes it can be very comfortable to be in that place because it's
Yeah.
something you keep on doing. But doesn't just because you're doing it doesn't mean it's good. So you might be
Yeah.
used to it, but like it's not actually good for you.
Yeah, I think it's important to monitor your sphere, right? What who you let in your life, right? And if you're around people who you feel are bringing you down, I think it's important to just weed those people out of your life. You want people around you. They say strong women lift each other up, and that's really, I think, what we need to focus on.
Yeah, because if you're around people that like not that they're just always cheerleading you around,
Hmm.
but if they make you
Yeah.
you're around people that make you feel like yes, I can do it versus
Yeah.
oh you can never do that. Like if
Right.
everybody
Right. Right.
around you is
Right.
always saying never, 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 then like maybe you got to think about who you have around.
Yeah. 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 I agree. Very much so. Yeah.
So that's interesting. Like, so if you're a parent trying to raise
Hmm.
kids with all these
Hmm.
kind of influences,
Yeah.
um, what's like the first step? Because it seems like social media could be detrimental to a young mind if
Yeah.
they don't know how to handle it, right? And so if you do have to like kind of have parental guidance on it.
Yeah, I will say now that my my kids are older, right? My kids are all adults now. So it's a little bit different now than when I was raising them, because I had boys. But I think the most important thing actually starts at home, and what your household is like, and how you see yourself as a parent. I'm extremely fortunate that, like, we always had dinner every night as a family, and we always had healthy dinners, and I was never expected to, like, eat everything, and I wasn't expected to, like, not have a certain amount. Like, my parents just let me eat, like, at dinner, I just ate
And not to finish
whatever
your
we were
plate.
having, right? Yeah, and I think it's important to have healthy, nutritious food around the house, and to model for your kids, good good eating behaviors. Like, if you're hungry, you eat something. If you're not hungry, maybe you don't, right? But there's to not assign value, like this food is good or this food is bad. Um to view food as something that you use to nourish your body. I think of that. I think that that's probably actually the biggest thing, is that, kids kids model their parents, right? And, like, if you're a mom and you're constantly finding, like, if you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, like, "Oh, I look fat in this," like, little ears are listening, right? Or if you're at the grocery
Oh
store
yeah,
and you say, like, "Oh, we're not gonna I can't buy this because this will make you fat." Maybe you choose not to buy something because it's got low nutritional value, you know um uh, you know but looking at, not assigning that moral nature to food,
yeah,
and then also with your kids. I keep saying daughters even though I have sons, but focusing on what they do, not how they look, like, on the great things they do, are they, if they did well in school, if they did well in gymnastics, if they did well in this, not like, oh, you look so pretty in this, or your hair, just
yeah,
focusing more on who they are as people. If they do good, kind things, when they do things that are are not good and kind, I think it's okay to say I'm disappointed in you. I think you're a wonderful person, and I expect better from you. I've come to expect better from you. I know that you can do better than this, but
Yeah, the
because
medicine.
that's your kids just absorb that atmosphere that you raise them in. And if you I mean, my father now is he's passed away, right? And but because I was raised by like such good parents, such strong parents, like I like believe in myself, right? I could have, I mean, I'm married, I've been married a long time, but like if I could have all through college and things when I was younger, if like a guy didn't treat me well, like I caught on really fast that like that's not cool, that's not acceptable, right? Because it was modeled to me. And so even though like my mom lives back in Minnesota right now, I haven't seen my mom in like 6 months or something, but like, and if my mom were to die, I mean, like, I know all the way in my heart of hearts that I'm a good person. I could have everybody in the world be mean to me, but I still know that I'm a good, worthwhile person.
You have
And
self-worth. Like
yes,
you
yes,
were taught to have it, not
yes. And so, and so like that's just what we have to instill in our kids is that you're not what you look like. You're not, you are how you treat others. You are how you make the world better. That's what you are. And if you can really instill that in your kids, I mean, that's something that nobody can take away from them. Like they'll believe it, right? They'll believe it. Rock solid, they'll believe it.
I think it's real important that they kind of build the self-value
Yeah.
because a lot of times, people like with the, they'll like if you be the athlete, be the most like alpha
Yeah.
aggressive athlete,
Yeah.
but you're not really a team player. It's all about you,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's like everything's about like, well, I'm winning the game
Mhm.
for the team rather
Mhm.
than I'm working with my team to win
Mhm.
the game.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the
It's
joy of
probably a
teamwork.
better mindset to say, I'm going to work with everybody on the team. Yeah,
Yep.
to win the game is rather than thinking you're the most important person on the team. And then
Yeah.
if your parent says that, yeah, you're the best person on that team. You're the only person
Yeah.
that matters on that team.
Yeah.
That's not the best way to teach your kid because
No.
then they don't play well with others. They
Yep.
don't learn about compassion or empathy or teamwork or
Yeah.
understanding like, it's not just you, it's everybody.
And also the joy, just simply of movement, right? The joy of exercise, the joy of sports, the joy of athleticism. If you I used to, when I was a kid, I used to play racquetball a lot with my dad. And I really enjoyed that. Or like when I was a kid, I did gymnastics because it was really fun. And so like if you can get your kids involved in things where they move their body and they exercise, not as a punishment for what they ate or not to lose a certain amount of calories or whatever, but if they can find sports and movement or dance. I love to dance and
Mhm.
gymnastics, like because it's fun,
Yeah.
right? If you
Yeah.
can inspire that love
Like
of
skateboarding or
movement.
mountain biking,
Yeah,
like
yep,
when I was
yep.
a kid, like the skateboarding, I did it.
Yeah.
Mountain bike and BMX, I did it
Yes.
kind of for fun. It wasn't like I'm gonna go run, like try to be on a track meet, and it
Yeah.
really wasn't what I wanted. It was just trying to
Right.
get some number. When I'm
Yeah.
out BMXing or skateboarding, it was because it was fun, and so I
Mhm.
would be out there doing it,
Yeah.
not to hit any goal or win anything other than this is actually cool and it's fun for me and I feel good about it.
Yeah, and that's something that will stay with you, all your life. And like I don't do gymnastics anymore, but there, you will evolve, right? Like you might do CrossFit, or you might do something that I had recently kind of gotten into was Ultimate Ninja, which is like an obstacle course training type of thing. I
Oh,
think that's really fun. Prior to that, I had gotten into Olympic lifting. I was really into like snatching for a while until I kind of messed up my shoulder. But like you'll evolve, right? You'll find different things throughout your life, right? Like you can't, to it, but if you're somebody who just simply likes to exercise and you like movement, you'll be able to shift and move. Like maybe it's yoga for a while. You have a season where
yeah,
you're really into
change
yoga. You
things.
have a season you're into tennis, or you do what I do and just do them all. But
Yeah, you're skiing or you're snowshoeing, you're
yeah,
hiking, it's like you
yeah,
pick different things because
Yeah.
it's just different times of year. So you
Yeah.
just get variety. It seems like if you have more variety,
Yeah.
then you tend to not like focus on certain areas where you could overwork yourself and mess
Yep.
yourself up.
Yep. And
Where
that's,
if you
yep.
have a varied kind of
Yep.
workout, then you don't
Yep.
stress any one thing because you're just the thing is being extreme on anything
I
usually
know.
causes the problem.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
But it's so cool to like talk to an author that's really happy about what you've done. Like you did the book because it was like something you were passionate about.
I was
Is that
inspired,
like
man.
the best advice? Like are you thinking about another book or are you just focusing
Yeah.
on this?
No, no. So my agent and I, so I've got another book in the works. I've finished the manuscript. It's in draft form, and he and I have gone back and forth on this draft. I just sent it back to him again last night, so he'll read it for a couple weeks. Then he'll get me some edits, and then we'll talk, right? I might make
Mhm.
all of them, but I might not make all of them. We'll talk about, like, he'll say, like, I think you need to develop this more. You need to cool off on this. And it will be it's a work in progress, but we'd like to probably try to sell that second one in the next, I think, maybe a month or two. But
Well,
yeah,
that's
I think the best way, if anybody's an aspiring author here, is to find, you want to write about something that, like, you can't let go of, right? And that, like, for me, like, for Bodies to Die For, like, it was that seed when I landed on that, like, I just couldn't let go of it. And you need, especially for a debut author, you want it to be something that you're passionate about, because that passion will come through in your work. You're also going to need that passion to, if you're going to be traditionally published, you're going to need that passion to sell it to somebody else, and you're going to need that passion to drive you through a lot of hard times. Like my book, when I wrote it, I rewrote it several times until I got it as tight as I could. And I had to query it to agents. I got a lot of rejection, right? I had to deal with a lot of rejection. I finally got my agent. He and I rewrote the book a million times, and he took it out. He, to sell it, got some more rejection. Somebody bought it. Then I had to rewrite it with the editor several times, and now it's out. So whatever story you're gonna write, you're going to be with it for a number of years, right? So you want it to be something that you're still excited about, right? I'm still excited about this, right? I like believe in it. I like hand sell it to people because I believe so strongly. So I would really encourage any aspiring author to pick the thing that you're passionate about. Yeah.
I think that's why every time I talk to a creative person, the
Yeah.
reason that they're doing it is they have that spark.
Yeah.
And, even though there would be like ups and downs in the process
Yep.
of, seeing it get born, seeing your
Yeah.
idea, there's all these stages,
Yeah.
musicians, we run into all kinds of stages from the demo to the post production to like
Yeah.
actually changing, making it perform something live versus, so
Yeah.
these things evolve. Like, so
Yep.
you have it as your idea, and then
Mhm.
you have to work with other people to get them to
Yeah.
buy into your idea
Very much.
and then you have to adjust it for all these
Yep.
different things and then learn how to sell it, learn how to play it,
Yep.
learn how to perform it. And so,
Yep.
yeah, there's all these levels where
Mhm.
you have to stick with it. Like you can't be like, oh well, it's done. Like we usually it keeps on
Yeah.
evolving. You keep on having to put work in. And I
Yes.
think it's like if you show up every
Yeah.
time I talk to any kind of creative person, no matter
Yeah.
what level it is, it's like showing up and having the dedication that even when
Mhm.
it gets hard and you have to do a rewrite, you have to do an
Mhm.
adjustment, or your editor says
Yep.
this, your producer says that.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to do it, do the things you need to do it.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. It's that grit and that stamina. They're just gonna, and the passion, right? The absolute belief and the passion that are gonna carry you through.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's always people think it's 0 to 100 people that show up, and it's like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
it must be easy. It's like there's a lot of work you put in.
And there's a lot of work that people also don't. A lot of times, as a debut author, I know a lot of other debut authors now at this point. a lot of us, this is not our first book, right? A lot of us have written other books. Like I said, I wrote a whole other book that I never was able to get an agent for. A lot of us, this is our debut, was our second or third or fourth book before we finally
Yeah.
got an agent, or an
Unseen
agent was
work.
sold it. There's a lot of
It's like,
work that you never sees the light of day. Yeah.
yeah, it's like that's just a part of being a creative is like
Yeah.
you have a lot of demos, you have a lot of rough drafts
hmm
before anybody ever sees anything. You could have
Yeah.
different in tons of shows in the pizza place before
hmm
anybody sees you on a bigger stage, right? You see it in a little
Absolutely.
bar down the street before anybody ever sees you
Yeah.
in a good venue. That's
Yeah.
just the way it happens. You have to
Yeah.
build up that kind of muscle memory, right?
Yeah.
They say 10,000 hours into anything, then
Yeah.
suddenly you get then you're there because you got it.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you again for being on the
Oh,
podcast
thank you so much for having me. Yeah.
and mention your website again. It's www.loribrandwrites.com. That'll be
hmm
fully clickable. If people click on that, they can get the book right there, or you have other
Yeah.
things you can get there.
So I'm not selling anything, right, other than the book, right? You can buy the book there. You can buy it anywhere books are sold, right? You can buy it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Target, really, and anywhere books are sold. It's available in all formats. It's available in hardcover, softcover, Kindle, audio. Yeah,
Awesome.
everywhere.
Great. Well, audio too. That's a cool way because that's
Yeah.
another way that a lot of people, commute, that travel,
Yep.
road warriors.
Yep.
They love to get books that way. So this, think about it, like in terms of that might be a cool book to have when you're on the plane,
Oh,
when you're out
totally.
there traveling. So
Yeah.
thank you again for being on the Family Electric Ghost podcast. We appreciate that you took the time to be a guest on the show.
Oh, thank you for
And
having me. Yeah.
this has been live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, and we'll be on all the major podcast platforms where you can listen to or watch a podcast by tomorrow. But thank you again for being on the Family Electric Ghost podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate it.